All right, Jesse, prove it to me. I don't believe he's here. I don't believe we have Cubelic. We've actually never had Cubelic in our new setup here, so I don't know how this works. Well, there he is.
Here I am.
And you sound clearer than you ever did in the old building.
Yeah, Jesse got to work on it. Said that he wasn't going to allow you to pretend like a technical difficulty was going to keep me from being on the show again tonight. But I just appreciate you waiting until 35 million people were watching the first quarter of the first NFL game of the season to bring me on your show live, when obviously everybody is dialed in.
You think there's design behind that, huh?
I know how calculated you are.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've talked about Alabama a lot this week. You just do radio.
Not on our local show in Birmingham.
Yeah, you just do radio in Birmingham Monday through Friday. Okay, so I listen to you and McElroy a lot. So I'm aware of what the tone of the show sounded like this week. For those unfamiliar, they kind of know the stereotype. Like if someone's in Seattle, they know the stereotype. What's the state of Alabama like when Alabama loses? Or God forbid, both of them. Alabama, Auburn lose the same week. Well, this week we had a Bama meltdown. We had an Auburn win on the road at Baylor. What was the dynamic like there?
It's one of my most difficult times of the year when it does take place the way that it did, to actually host a radio show in Birmingham. And it goes something like this. Welcome back in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX if you'd like to get in. Pause, go to phones, let people melt down live. That's pretty much it. And the tone of those people was that this is 100% on the coaches, that Coach DeBoer needs to be fired, that none of the coaches there know what they're doing, and the scheme was terrible, the design of the plays were terrible, and $60 million is no big deal. Just pay it out now, get it over with, and let's move on.
Someone else's money. It's the easiest money to spend. I don't know if you heard, by the way. I don't know if you heard. Cole, you don't even have to pay it all at once. You can pay it in annual installments. So when you break it down like that, what is $70 million? You get to split it out to 2031. It's kind of easy when you think about it.
Think about it this way, though, and just to entertain the stupidity that is that conversation. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine today, and he asked me that question, and asked it because he thought he had spoken to some people who know that led him to believe this could possibly be real somehow, some way. And I said, well, let's take the follow-up to that. So let's hit 63 to whatever it is. Let's just call it 60.
Yep.
Okay. You're going to have to buy out the rest of the staff. You're closing in on 70 at that point. You're going to lose a lot of guys to the portal. Okay. Now, this is before we talk about new coach. Mm-hmm. And when you lose players, what do you have to do? Replace said players, and you may have to pay a premium to get those back, so your NIL's going up. So now we're at, 80-ish? On top of that, got to go hire a new coach. That's going to be guaranteed money that somebody's got to come up with, because we're all scared of revenue sharing now, so we can't use school money on that anymore. So now all the folks that ponied up for all that, we either got to go back to them, which we've been knocking on their door weekly for the last couple of years anyway, and we got to say, hey, we really like Coach so-and-so, but he's probably going to command $100 million guaranteed to come be the head coach here because of what we just did to the last guy. You're good for that, right? Oh, sure. Check after check after check. And you're talking, honestly, Josh, you're talking an $80 million decision.
Yep.
Maybe more if you were to go down that route. And it's not realistic in today's landscape of college football. So it's unfortunate that a lot of it goes a certain direction, because I never think it's all players' fault. I never think it's all coaches' fault. Just like it's never one player's fault, just like one play never decides a game. But I will say this. I have lived through a few of these. I'm not going to act like, and listen, I lived through the mics and saw that firsthand. I was here the last time they played ULM at Bryant-Denny and lost. I know what that meltdown was like. I don't know about you, but this one feels like it got a lot more toxic a lot more quickly than a lot of the others in the past. And I don't necessarily know exactly what the reasoning is for that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why. I don't think that leadership at Alabama necessarily consulted everyone who believes it's their birthright to be consulted before they went and made the hire of Kalen DeBoer.
I think what you're trying to say is he ain't from the South.
That's exactly right. Saban was born in Wetumpka. That's well known. Saban never
he didn't tell nobody.
Yeah, absolutely. Saban walked in town with a straw in his mouth. But Kalen DeBoer now, Kalen DeBoer, the Pacific Ocean, the Puget Sound. So I think that's part of it. And I think you get this kind of win-win or loss-loss stance, depending on how you view it, where now we warned him. We warned old Greg Byrne there. This may not work out. May not, by the way. May not work out to where you get to reap all the rewards and the benefits if they win, but you also get to have the I told you so in my back pocket if it goes sideways. And then, so here's what I wonder. And for anyone who's curious about what we're talking about, it is a bad time in the state of Alabama right now. There's been a lot of talk about boosters unhappy and hey, the unrest is real. That's what people keep telling me. It's not made up, it's real. I don't doubt it's real. Manure is real when I pass a cow pasture. That's real. It's there. I'm not going to do much with it, but it's real. But I will ask you this, and anyone, I guess I could just speak into the void. So let's say Cole Cubelic is the biggest donor they have. Let's say your picture is hanging up in the Malmore facility there when you walk in, and everybody just steps to the side when you stroll across campus. That's how big a deal you are. I assume you want Alabama to win. I assume that in your heart of hearts, a perfect Saturday is you're up 42-0 in the fourth quarter and the starters are coming out and you want to see championships and blah, blah, blah. Do you think it's best accomplished by running your mouth to writers and having them anonymously citing you, talking about how we're ready to make a move if you don't get the job done, or maybe keeping that in-house? What do we think gives the football program a better chance to succeed? Because I keep looking at this and how laughable and how much of a circus it is from the outside, and I don't necessarily think some of the clowns inside the circus really realize that.
Well, we have seen what it looks like when it's the part that you're describing about 2.5 hours west.
Yeah.
One coach ago, when a lot of folks decided it would be best to go to certain writers and make up certain stories and have those printed and have those on message boards. And it ended in an ugly divorce. And all of a sudden, everybody thought they were loving what they had up until last Friday night. That was on rocky terms. So I personally would want it all to stay in-house as much as humanly possible, because I would want to be able to fix the problem that I potentially caused. I think like I know, egos don't allow that to happen, and it's never going to be the reality. So this one of the biggest possible downfalls of this entire switch or replacement was the amount of people that had not had their tentacles on that place or in that place that were going to be able to at least attempt to do it and maybe get back inside there. Because I've said it for a long time, Josh. I think you and I have talked about this. The greatest accomplishment Nick Saban had at Alabama was stiff-arming certain people out of there and removing their control. And he didn't do it to them individually. He went to the administration and said, get them away or it's not going to work. And that's it. Bottom line. So stay away. Let us do what we do. You help the way you help, and we'll move on and win championships. And they did. No other coach has been able to do it to the effect that he did. I would imagine that Kalen DeBoer struggles with a lot of people that now feel like, well, Nick's gone, so I deserve my time to be back in there. And it's not necessarily comfortable to have to manage that, especially now with NIL, and you need the money that those guys can provide, and you probably need it more times than you ever need it annually. It's tough, but you're not going to be able to keep them from keeping their mouths shut and getting their way. I'm not just referencing Alabama here. I'm referencing Mega Booster in general at big programs. They're all going to want to get their message out through certain people. It's just it's how they operate.
It is it's amazing. So I've talked to you about this, but I want to talk to you about it on the show. So that was like a sledgehammer to the face. The result was like a sledgehammer to the face.
Hold on. I got to go back real quick. I forgot to do this. It's not necessarily rough times in Alabama right now. Because, Auburn did just run for 300 against Baylor on the road Friday night, so it's not all bad. Trent Dilfer did win his opener.
That's not an undersized Baylor front, I was told. That was a front that was ready, willing, and able to take on the task, and then the task found them, and not so much. So if you're done interrupting, I do want to talk to you about the Alabama outcome itself, because that was a sledgehammer to the face to me. So you've got their game this weekend, actually. So great timing on your part. Yep. But I remember talking to you throughout spring, throughout summer, You go over there and watch him practice. I go over there and watch him practice. We both talk to a lot of people who watch him practice. Was there ever any inclination, forget about any one person's viewpoint, collectively, people you trust, was there ever any inclination that any kind of threat of what we saw last Saturday was on the horizon? Because I will tell you the feedback I got. It was swift and it was immediate. And that was, don't you feel like an idiot now for saying what you said about your observations when you watched them practice and the vibe that you got from them? Look, I fully admit, hey, man, I could whiff. So look beyond me. I mean, you've probably talked to a dozen people who were around that program in the fall. It all sounded pretty much the same to me. I noticed a lot of people saying what I was saying. That was what took me so much by surprise. But I kind of wanted you to share some of the feedback, some of the generic intel that you had gotten, and then how badly it didn't sync up with the result.
Well, there's 4 or 5 people that either played there or have been there that were at practices this fall that I spoke to that said similar things, if not the exact same thing that you did. The physicality seemed like it had ramped up a little bit. That might be the oddest part of what we're talking about and what we saw on Saturday afternoon, that it was fast. Guys look athletic. A couple guys looked like they were in better shape than they had been in the previous year or years. And that didn't seem to be sloppy. They're not dropping snaps. There's not procedure penalties. It was clean. It was crisp. And that's from, McElroy told me that, and I trust his opinion and his eyes when he's there watching that, probably more so than anybody because of his history there and what he does and how he knows ball. I talked to Corey Reamer about it. We had Tyler Watts on the show who does radio. He talked about it. I mean, it wasn't just you that was saying that. I mean, it was 8, 9, 10 people who I spoke to that all said the exact same things. And I think we spoke at media days, and I brought it up to you. I said, this late momentum for Alabama of not just being able to win, but deep in the playoffs, national championship, I just feel like there's a lot of people jumping on board with that. And I think some of it was that people generally got to see them and felt great about Greg and I talked about it on our show. Which team did you fear more or feel better about? Either way, really. Alabama last year, Alabama this year. And when you started going through position by position, there were a lot of reasons to be a little bit more concerned if you were playing against them about this team this year.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the biggest oddities I have seen in college football in a long time. And I've shared this with you. The reason for that is there are a lot of people on Sunday posting their clips of, Bray Hubbard not chasing a guy or safeties not running after a guy 20 yards in front of the field. That's scary. And you don't like that. That's not good. But Josh, that wasn't even a third as bad as the stuff that I saw that I was concerned about. And the things that I was concerned about was the lack of physicality and the fact that Alabama absorbed for almost 4 full quarters of that game. And by saying that, what I mean is striking their opponent from the defensive line position, from the linebacker position, from the safety position, striking their opponent from the offensive line, tight end, running back position. I thought 80 played well. I thought Parker, the most unfortunate part of this whole thing is nobody's talking about how well Parker Brailsford played. He played his rear end off. And Jeremy Bernard also did. And that's about it. And to see guys getting pushed around, to see guys getting jarred back, when I see guards double teaming and comboing, climbing up to Deontay Lawson and kind of having a free run, I'm used to C.J. Mosley, Reuben Foster, Reggie Ragland, Rolando McClain popping that helmet, and it's like, I'm telling you, the way it looks on film is like that offensive lineman's helmet. It kind of like jars back. It's just like that. And as an offensive lineman, when I see that, you're like, ooh, no, not good. That's because the feet almost come off the ground. You have to completely reset your body. By the time they're doing that, they're shedding you off and they're going to make the play. And it was either patty cake, walk up to each other and hand fight, like literally my 8-year-old and 5-year-old would do, or it was, and this was, I'm not going to say I've ever seen this in an Alabama uniform. Duck, turn shoulder, and take on block that way. Not even front side shoulder, literally the back of the backside shoulder. So you're turning your back to the ball carrier, which from a defensive perspective, it's no different than anything else in sports. You want to shoot a basketball, you probably need to look at the rim. You want to hit a baseball, you probably need to watch the ball. How are you going to tackle someone looking the way they're running? It's not possible. So
we'll get back to the video 1 second. Do me one quick favor. Look down. Make sure you're subscribed. Most of you are. If you're not, please do so. It's the way we keep the channel free, we keep the videos coming, and we get to do college football year-round as God intended. All right, as promised, back to the video.
Alabama has been the enforcer for a decade plus. They have been the striker for a decade plus. And I explained this on Read and React Monday night when Roman and I got into it. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I mean, whatever. It's like maybe they're faster, maybe they're more athletic. The reason that's important is because for that period of time, Josh, when that was happening, there was nothing you could do about it. There was no play call. There was no way to circumvent it. There was no formation. When you had to go mano-a-mano on that guy, he was kicking your tail. And that's why we have spread offense, triple option, hurry up, no huddle offense, air raid, because all those coaches said with teams like that could do that were capable of that, we have to have this to even be competitive. And Gus did a good job of bringing some of that out, and their guys got after him and won the game physically. And that's why you got the outcome that you did. And I said, and I'll say it again, the scariest part to me is if that's gone, how do you win?
Yeah.
Do you out quarterback people? Do you out offensive line people? Because that group didn't look like they're going to just give solid protection all year. Are you just out pass rushing people? Is your defensive line that dominant to where they're just going to be in the backfield causing those kind of problems? Are your safeties covering everything up to where it doesn't matter? Because that didn't look like a reality. So if that portion of here's what we do, good luck, buddy, is gone. I mean, seriously, DeBoer and company are going to have to scheme their tails off to win games this year.
You know, a lot of people, even having watched Saturday, keep on circling the Georgia game. We were on the phone earlier today. You interrupted my workout for this. I knew it had to be important. And so you've got them this weekend. They play UL Monroe. Then they've got Wisconsin coming in. Then there's a bye. Then they go to Georgia. It's a better part of a month between now and that Georgia game. But what you're talking about all gets balled up into competitive character. That's basically what we're talking 100%. About here. Let's just say it is a terminal issue with them. Competitive character. It's not a mirage. What we saw in week 1 is really it's there and it's not going away. We were talking earlier today. Neither one of us expect, UL Monroe to challenge to beat them this week. But we've both seen situations throughout history where a big favorite ends up winning a game, but there's so many uh-oh moments. There's so many warning signs, so much red Sharpie all over that game to where you say, this is going to manifest itself in something ugly down the road. Likewise, with the Wisconsin game, that's a Big Ten opponent coming in. Not a great team in all likelihood, but point being, so if we're talking through this, and those flaws really are there, those are just permanent fixtures of the Alabama team this year, this year. Why is there such a certainty these next 2 weeks are, all right, we'll get it in order, and then when we go to Georgia, like I've been told all week, the Georgia game will tell the tale. How do you know you won't learn a whole lot this weekend about that team?
I think you will, and I think maybe the most intriguing part about this weekend is the folks that say what you just said, and that is they're going to bounce back this weekend. They're going to punish them, drive them into the ground, smash them, and then come back against Wisconsin. And as you just stated, the scary part about that, and I want everybody to understand, I'm still using if and maybe and could be because I don't know if this is a real problem. It was one game. I'm not judging a team. I'm not judging a coach. I'm not judging a player on one game because I don't know all the extra parameters of what was going on, and the circumstantial evidence has not been presented to me. So I'm going to give them another chance to show me who they may really be. The scary part, Josh, is if that mentality and that competitive character is flawed, there's no reason to believe that they will do what Bama teams of the past have done or just other good programs in the past have done, and that is bounce back, smash face, go to the next game. Because I would imagine if you are weak-minded in a way that it forced you to play the way you did last week, it's going to be harder to get ready for this game this week.
Yeah.
Because no one likes you right now. And everybody's telling you how bad you are. And no one's liking your posts. and no one's jumping on your Instagram lives, and no one's commenting on your TikToks, and you're sitting there thinking, what is happening? So that, to me, would be more concerning than any of it if, and it's a big if because we don't know, that's what's going on, and that's a real problem right now. Well, I think we find out this weekend if that is a terminal flaw or if that was something that they allowed to creep in. And it's not just that day, because if it happened that way, it creeped in during fall camp.
Yep.
And it prevented them from excelling the way that they needed to be competitive in that game. They didn't fall apart on Saturday morning in Tallahassee. That happened in fall camp and prevented them somehow, some way from being able to put up a better fight than what they did against Florida State.
So that's the glass half empty part, but you talked about using the word if. I've tried to be very careful to do that this week too, because you never know. You don't have revisionist history on your side. You don't have benefit of hindsight. We're not sitting in December judging week one. We're in week 2 judging week 1. So September's going to give us a lot of context on what week 1 meant. Florida State may be a top 5 team for all we know. I want to ask you this though. How much would it shock you, scale of 1 to 10, if you fast forward to December and that team's in Atlanta playing for the SEC championship anyway?
Shock me, no, but I would be surprised.
I would too.
Because here's the hardest part about it. Take the exact conversation that you and I had at SEC Media Days when you perfectly laid out the scenario of the difference between 5 and 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Again, here's another if. What if we just threw Alabama and Texas into that race? And all of a sudden, there's 2 more teams in there, and it's literally 3 through 12 or 13 are all the same. And you got to fight that uphill battle the entire season and essentially play flawless football to even be in the mix for that. Because the ones that are looking like they're at the top, maybe it's just Georgia, LSU, maybe Oklahoma shoots all the way up there. We don't really know. If one of the other 2 teams does, you're still going to have to play more teams than a lot of people thought could even be in the mix for an SEC championship game berth. So I think now the thing that would surprise me the most is though it appears as though we don't even have 4 teams in that upper quadrant of the SEC. It's probably a lot more crowded in the middle than we imagined at Media Days, and we thought we had never really seen it that crowded before since we've been watching football. So that would be the part that I would look at and say, I am surprised they ran through that. Shocked? No, they still have takeover players. They still have players that can dominate a game, and they still have a great coaching staff, and they still have depth that some other teams don't have. So to be able, the things that can be repaired there are easily repaired. Proper pass sets, not getting beat inside. Now, you can't change your agility and lateral movement, which I've been trying to tell people the whole offseason. Just because PFF says the guy's the first pick in the draft, calm down. He hasn't been through 2 consecutive spring balls, and we just think he's better magically. Like, this ain't Lucky Charms. Things don't just happen. You earn things in football. But they still have guys that can go out and be dominant. Take the first series of the game. I mean, I posted like 3 clips from the first series. Like, good Lord, they've got that D tackle 7 yards downfield. I might have just done that with the whole game. But the game was obviously one that wasn't going to allow them to play that way because of what Florida State was doing offensively. I would be surprised, but Josh, you know this. There is almost nothing that can shock me in college football these days.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. We've seen more in the last 2 years than if you and I wrote a movie script, we've been laughed out of Hollywood.
Yeah, you also never know.
Guys are telling their coaches they're not playing in games and they're starters after 4 games. Take that somewhere else.
Interesting. You also never know when a new normal is setting itself. You never know when you're in the process of a new normal happening. Like
that's a scary thought right there.
You just never know. Like we're talking about pretty much non-negotiables, terminal this, terminal that. Well, that's because your entire life playing and watching this game, my life watching this game, there were a lot of things Alabama exhibited last week that if you see that, that's just going to be a problem that's going to derail any chance you have of doing this or that. Well, that's based on history. That's based on certain pillars of college football throughout history. You never know when the things that win and the things that can be tolerated or the things that really matter and are really correctable and aren't, you never know when that's being rewritten right in front of your face. Like I remember when Ohio State lost that game against Virginia Tech that year. They go on to win the national title. And people were sitting there after week 1 saying, how overrated. I mean, this is a historically overrated team after week 1. They go on to win the title. I'm sure there were conversations at that point pointing to this, and this, which will be a terminal flaw in this team, and it will keep them from going on. Now, we were probably talking about schematic-based things instead of things from the neck up, things in here maybe, like we're talking about with this Alabama team. But I'd be surprised by it. Shocked, though. I hadn't seen the rest of these teams get pushed yet. I tend to believe Bama was the first high-profile example of someone getting exposed this year. I'm not sure we don't have 3 or 4 more of them. Some of them just happen to be favored by 40 last year.
More because there's so many teams that we're way ahead of ourselves on. Again, like you and I have said, we don't know. I said I was going to give it 3 weeks before I make any sort of definitive statements about anybody. It might need to be 5 or 6, honestly. You brought up Ohio State. They're a perfect example right here. None of us thought they were going to be as physical as they were last year. None of us thought that the defense was going to be able to operate at any kind of a similar level to what they did last year. Two edge defenders drafted. You had the best safety, probably top 3 player in college football coming back. Okay, but could he mask everything? Look how they looked up front.
Yeah.
They gave Texas's offensive line, which it's mostly new. Yes, a lot of problems. But how about the flip side of that? They went out there and pushed Texas around. And, by the way, won that game without having the best player in college football get to 7 catches. So they found different ways for a new quarterback and a limited best player on their football team to go out there and get a win, which at the end of the day is almost more impressive to me than going to beat somebody 40-0. You take all the things and all these uncertainties and you say, we're not going to let that beat us. We're not going to lean on that to the point to where if it's not elite today, it crushes us. We're just going to go win a game. And that's what Ryan Day did. And so that's almost the flip side of what we're talking about right here is the team that everybody looked at and said, no, probably not. I can't see it. Definitely no. And they went out there and got a big yes.
Yeah. All right. Cube Show. We're doing it again this year, right?
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Tell people where they can
Some
find
guy
it,
commented on the SEC preview that we did. He's like, this fool says he's going to watch every game and tell us what happened. We only been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, guy.
So Cube Show, that's how you find it.
Yeah, it's there. It's out there somewhere in the interwebs. It's this guy's podcast. It's out there. At Cube Show on socials. You can follow it there. Please subscribe. I think we're up to 17,000, of which 16,500 can contribute directly to you.
Do you think 20K by Halloween? Like, is that what we're aiming for right now?
I feel like that's a stretch. We've been moving slow here.
No.
In the off season.
We're going to figure it out. All right. Look, we're going to do this. If your internet works and my truck works, we're going to do this the entire year. So I appreciate you. Thank you as always.
I will say the advantage we have getting to 20,000 is we didn't take 4 weeks off before the season started.
There you go. Just do some film study. That's what everyone tends to be doing these days. That'll work. Goodbye. Have fun in Tuscaloosa. Goodbye.